Neo has no personality, and Keanu Reeves plays the same character in almost every film. He's awkward, and the only expressions he ever wears are confused or lost. That is, if he's wearing any expression at all. Yet we all remember Neo, don't we? We loved him anyway, didn't we? Why is that? This is a short little think piece on why the character of Neo worked so well in the first Matrix film and didn't work so well in the subsequent films. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about the Matrix for a little bit, and if you're all in, sit back, take a breath, and I hope you feel something. This is Neo, Us, and the Mirror.
And before we get too deep, I just want to say thank you guys for being here. Thank you for checking out this video. And if you enjoy content like this, hit that like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot over here. So thanks.
If you go back to common writing advice, you'll find Neo lacking in several peripheral strengths like charisma or tics that make him unique. And what about backstory? A compelling backstory to set its hooks in the viewer, the type of thing that makes you want to root for him to win. But Neo has none of that really. We meet Neo pretty quickly in the first film, but strangely enough, he's not the first character we see. Definitely not the first we want to know more about. He wakes up to mysterious messages, a trail of hints, breadcrumbs, and suspicious new characters slipping into his life. In his first main character beat, the only thing he does immaculately is disappoint. Morpheus calls and offers a way to escape his newfound predicament in the faceless agents that just appeared at his office. The scene grows tense, and we, as viewers, prepare to take the leap Neo refuses to make. That's just it, isn't it? How many of you watched The Matrix for the first time and found yourself already on the edge of your seat during that scene? When Neo steps out the window, you're ready for the daring escape, but Neo can't do it. He isn't ready. Now, there isn't anything novel about this character beat. Sure, the Wachowskis are setting up a strong try-fail cycle, but the underlying feelings evoked from viewers isn't exactly support for Neo. For me, it was disappointment. I'll come out and say it. We got blueballed. We all thought it was already time for Neo to break free, but instead, he chickened out. He showed weakness. This works for a lot of characters and a lot of stories in a lot of ways, but what makes this feel strange is that Neo isn't interesting. Outside of his failure, he has nothing going for him so far. As viewers, we haven't really latched onto anything. I don't know, for me, I felt a little resentment. And after the resentment comes the dread. Our first real meeting with Agent Smith and the unsettling bit with the mouth disappearing and the robot in the belly button. Yeah, that thing. I draw attention specifically here because I want to talk about why Neo works as a character despite how much of a snooze fest he really is. While you may be able to pin this as an acting failure on the part of Keanu Reeves, I actually love the way this character works. Neo feels like a blank canvas. Because Neo is so lacking in defining characteristics, he could be anyone. This builds a subconscious bond with the viewer, making it easier to see ourselves in him. I mean, think about it. Neo gets yoinked out of the Matrix for hardly any reason at all. Despite how the supporting cast is always rambling about some prophecy and their belief that he is the elusive one, we never really see why until he quite literally has to prove it by believing in himself to the point of achieving that godhood that everyone whispers about. If you were going over candidates on a sheet for the coveted job of being the one, Thomas Anderson isn't exactly a standout pick. And that's why it works so well. Neo's journey is your journey, and that's why I believe all these years later, so many still remember the film. Sure, you can attribute a lot to the great special effects, a good story, and some iconic lines, but I think that's selling it short somehow. I think the reason it sticks is because in 1999, it didn't feel like we were watching Neo escape the Matrix. It felt like we did. For those short hours we were glued to the screen, we were free. The story isn't built on deep backstories or nuanced relationships, and that's okay. The Wachowskis never really give Neo the meaty story he might deserve. In the first film, he has one sole arc, one purpose: to believe. His struggle is to accept his destiny and believe in himself enough to overcome the agents. Now, there are many questions to be answered about whether or not Neo is really the one or what the term even means, but for the sake of the first film, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't really do anything to earn his status other than believe. It's such a simple yet effective arc. When I was younger, I used to think Neo was a poorly acted character. I mean, it's still debatable by common standards. Despite how we all love Keanu Reeves, myself included, we love him more than the characters he plays because his characters rarely offer much in the way of well-acted dialogue or layered character building. It's something about the man himself that makes you want to root for him. That said, Neo is the perfect role for Reeves. He doesn't ooze swagger, bravery, or determination. Yes, later on he achieves some of those things, but for the majority of the first film, he stumbles behind the cool kids, struggling to keep up and simply accept the things happening around him. He doesn't make great or engaging choices for the plot's sake. He makes the decisions we might. Neo is just a normal guy. I think this is one of the biggest reasons the first film is so successful. Yes, it's a great movie, well executed on every front, but plenty of films are well made that never hit the cultural zeitgeist. In order for a story to really take off, it has to relate to a massive audience of often underrepresented beings. Fast forward to the second and third films, The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, and it may be a contributing factor to their waning popularity. You see, Neo changes after the first film. Sure, he acts in similar ways, he's still recognizable, but no longer relatable. He moves from your everyday avatar to a Christ-like figure. He can fly now. We all know no one can beat him. He's consumed by an otherworldly endeavor to save all of humankind. He's even quieter than in the first film, more stoic. Neo becomes increasingly alien to the viewer. He's no longer just trying to figure things out. He stops acting how we might if we were in his shoes and starts acting like the one. Obviously, this still works on a story level, but it siphons some of the allure from the character and the story itself. We detach ourselves a little more with each subsequent film until we have no real emotional investment. In 2021, with the release of the fourth film, The Matrix Resurrections, most viewers were wondering why they should care at all. Does Neo's arc still work after the first film? Yes. After all, the Wachowskis couldn't simply replicate the character and arc that worked before. It would be bad writing to try. But there's something to be said for distancing yourself so much from the story that made you. I don't think the second and third films detract from Neo as a character either. I only think it's incredibly interesting how it all worked out. All these years later, we don't see Neo the way we used to. We used to look at Neo and see ourselves. Now we see Keanu Reeves. And maybe that's okay.